Why do so many people live trapped in patterns that don't seem to be their own? How can we tell if we are being authentic or simply conforming to the expectations of others? And ultimately, what does it mean to be yourself? Nietzsche, in his work, left us with a profound call. Become who you are. But how do we decode this message? Is it an invitation to freedom or an almost impossible task of self-discovery? Imagine for a moment that you are in a labyrinth. Each corridor represents a part of you, a desire, a fear, or an expectation inherited from others. Which path leads to your true self? For Nietzsche, this labyrinth is not just a metaphor. It is the space where we confront the complexity of the human mind, the multitude of voices within us, and the challenging task of harmonizing them into a coherent whole. Nietzsche proclaimed himself the first psychologist among philosophers. And this statement was not mere vanity. His understanding of the human psyche influenced psychological giants such as Freud, Jung, and Adler. However, for Nietzsche, understanding the mind was not an idle intellectual exercise. It was a matter of life and death, of how to transform internal chaos into something meaningful, vital, and unique. In this video, we will explore how Nietzsche's ideas can help us answer one of the most challenging questions of existence. How do we become who we truly are? Get ready for a journey into the heart of philosophy and psychology, where courage, introspection, and action come together to reveal the deepest and most authentic parts of ourselves. Friedrich Nietzsche, more than just a philosopher, was an untiring explorer of the depths of the human psyche. In 1888, shortly before the end of his productive life, he declared, "A psychologist without equal speaks through my writings." This phrase, seemingly pretentious, holds an undeniable truth. Nietzsche did not merely think about the human mind, he delved into it with unmatched intensity. During Nietzsche's lifetime, psychology was still in its infancy, striving to establish itself as a distinct field of study. The mind was largely understood through the lenses of moral and religious philosophy, which defined what was acceptable to think or feel. Nietzsche broke free from these constraints. For him, understanding the mind meant liberating it from the moral prejudices and cultural illusions that stifled it. Great thinkers of the 20th century, such as Freud, Jung, and Adler, recognized Nietzsche's originality. Freud, for instance, was deeply influenced by Nietzsche's insights into unconscious drives and internal conflict. Jung found resonance in Nietzsche's ideas about archetypes and the collective unconscious, while Adler drew inspiration from his emphasis on the will to power and overcoming limitations. For Nietzsche, however, psychology was not meant to be confined to laboratories or academic texts. He saw it as a way of life. Understanding the mind, for him, was a matter of survival, a way to truly live with authenticity. He believed that most people merely scratch the surface of themselves, avoiding the deeper, more chaotic layers that ultimately reveal who we truly are. And don't think that Nietzsche's curiosity about psychology came out of nowhere. He was a man who constantly looked inward, but he also had fragile health and an extraordinary sensitivity. These conditions made him a relentless observer of the complexities of human behavior. He understood that the mind is not a perfect machine, but rather a true chaos of impulses in constant conflict. His mission ultimately was to map this chaos and find a way to turn all that disorder into something meaningful, something that could give purpose to existence. Moreover, Nietzsche challenged the traditional view that human beings can be fully understood. Inspired by Heraclitus, he wrote that the soul has no boundaries. For Nietzsche, the mind is like an endless ocean, impossible to fully uncover but essential to navigate. Looking back at history, Nietzsche saw human thought as a prisoner of moral prejudices that hindered a genuine exploration of the psyche. He harshly criticized earlier philosophers, accusing them of lacking the courage to look within themselves. In Beyond Good and Evil, he stated that all psychology so far has been shackled by moral prejudices and has feared descending into the depths. Nietzsche emerges as that rare type of visionary who dared to break boundaries, both in philosophy and psychology. He not only opened doors for others to explore the deepest mysteries of the mind, but also left us a true guidebook for confronting our shadows and coming closer to what he called the totality of being. A journey, in the end, to understand who we truly are. Imagine your mind as a vast labyrinth with corridors stretching out in every direction. Some are well lit and familiar, others are dark, frightening, and seem forbidden. For Nietzsche, exploring these shadowy corridors wasn't just an act of courage, but a necessity for anyone seeking to become who they truly are. Nietzsche saw the human mind as far more complex than it appeared at the time. To him, the psyche was like a mosaic, filled with deep, interconnected layers where everything intertwined, impulses, desires, and forces constantly at odds with each other. Nothing about it was simple or static, as many people believed. He envisioned the mind as a battleground, a chaotic dance between parts that often failed to understand one another. This perspective was revolutionary, especially in an era when many thought the mind could be entirely unraveled or even controlled. As always, Nietzsche was one step ahead. He drew inspiration from Heraclitus, who said, "You would not find the boundaries of the soul, no matter how far you traveled, so deep is its mystery." This metaphor of the soul as something infinite deeply resonated with Nietzsche. To him, the human being is a mystery, not only to others, but most importantly, to themselves. However, delving into these depths can be dangerous. Nietzsche warned that descending into the darkest layers of the psyche is like stepping into a labyrinth filled with traps. In Beyond Good and Evil, he wrote, "He enters a labyrinth and multiplies 1,000-fold the dangers that life already brings with it. These dangers are not merely psychological but existential. By confronting our own fears, doubts, and most primitive impulses, we risk losing ourselves." But why take such a risk? Nietzsche believed that avoiding this confrontation with our inner self condemns us to live a shallow existence, merely as spectators of our own lives. According to him, most people limit themselves to playing a part in a common comedy, never diving into the depths of their true essence. For those brave enough to embark on this inner dive, the reward is immense. Nietzsche believed that by confronting our depths, we can transform the chaos within us into something purposeful, something that truly makes sense. He compared this process to sculpting a work of art, stripping away the superficial layers, chiseling patiently until the true form hidden beneath is finally revealed. But he also recognized that this journey isn't for everyone. Not everyone is prepared to descend into the darkest, most turbulent parts of themselves, and more importantly, emerge from that experience transformed. Nietzsche said that only a few, those with the courage and willingness to look inward, can achieve this. These individuals possess a deeper, sometimes even chaotic psyche, yet they are capable of shaping it, of harmonizing what once seemed impossible. They are the ones who ultimately discover the true wholeness of who they are. The danger of confronting your own inner demons is ever present, but Nietzsche saw a unique nobility in it. He wrote, "Whoever fights with monsters should see to it that they do not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." This statement is not just a warning, it's a reminder that introspection, though perilous, is the path to transformation. Ultimately, diving into the labyrinth of your own mind is both a trial and a one-of-a-kind opportunity. It's an invitation to face the darkest parts of who we are, the ones we try to hide, even from ourselves, and emerge on the other side stronger, wiser, and more aligned with our true essence. Nietzsche believed that only by confronting the chaos within us can we discover order. Only by gazing into the abyss with courage can we begin to truly become who we were meant to be. It's challenging, no doubt, but it's also the most transformative journey we can undertake. At the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy lies an unsettling truth. The human mind is chaos, a constant battlefield of conflicting impulses and internal forces that often leave us feeling lost. But for him, this chaos was not a cause for despair. It was the starting point for something extraordinary, the creation of a harmonious totality. This is where the concept of the organizing idea comes in, a central force capable of giving meaning and direction to our internal whirlwind. Nietzsche described the human psyche as a kind of internal social structure, where different impulses are always vying for control. But these impulses, these internal forces, are not enemies. In fact, they are energies that, when properly organized around a central idea, can transform a person into a powerful and coherent force. He himself explained, "The most general view of our essence is an association of impulses in constant rivalry and specific alliances with one another." This central idea, or organizing idea, is the point of balance that unites and harmonizes all these forces, which on their own seem chaotic. But Nietzsche did not see this as a process of rigid control, as some philosophies advocate. For him, it was something more natural, more organic. This organizing idea does not arise because we rationally decide it should exist, nor through sheer willpower. It emerges gradually, almost like a calling. It is the center of gravity that begins to give life meaning. He described it poetically. The organizing idea, destined to govern, grows slowly, begins to command gradually, leads us back from the wrong paths, and prepares indispensable qualities. It is a process of transformation that does not happen overnight. It's as if our true essence reveals itself at the right time, subtly yet powerfully. This process, according to Nietzsche, is like the work of a sculptor. Imagine standing before a raw block of marble. The sculpture within is not created out of thin air. It already exists in the block, waiting to be unveiled. Similarly, our true essence is not something we can invent, but rather something we must discover and shape throughout life. In his words, to create oneself, to mold a form out of various elements, this is the task of the sculptor and the productive human being. However, finding and following this organizing idea requires courage. It demands facing conflicting impulses, learning from mistakes, and accepting that the journey will be full of detours. Nietzsche understood that the path to becoming who you are is neither linear nor simple. He recognized that life is filled with challenges that test the strength of the organizing idea and often lead individuals to question whether they are on the right path. This journey also demands patience. Nietzsche believed that personal growth is a slow, almost imperceptible process, yet profound. He likened it to the cultivation of a tree, which grows from invisible roots and gains strength over time. Do not rush, he seemed to say. Let the organizing idea work in the depths until its strength becomes undeniable. The result of this internal work is the creation of a unified being, where all aspects of the psyche, even the darkest ones, are integrated into a coherent whole. This state of wholeness is not merely a personal achievement, but also the foundation for a meaningful and authentic life. For Nietzsche, this is true freedom, to live in accordance with your deepest essence, free from fear of contradictions or external judgments. He summarized this vision in an unpublished note. It is a myth to believe that we will find our true selves after abandoning or forgetting this or that. Shaping ourselves, forming a figure out of various elements. That is the task. In other words, becoming who you are does not mean eliminating internal chaos, but transforming it into something beautiful and meaningful. Nietzsche saw in this process a kind of heroism. Those who manage to harmonize their inner chaos and create a sense of wholeness are the true artists of life, capable of shaping not only themselves but also the world around them. It is this vision that continues to inspire not only philosophers and psychologists, but anyone seeking to live authentically and fully. Friedrich Nietzsche was not just a philosopher, he was a provocateur of souls. His legacy goes far beyond academic ideas. It permeates the way we feel, create, and even question our very existence. To him, the human mind was not a static puzzle, but a pulsing chaos, waiting to be shaped. And in his restless idea of becoming who you are, Nietzsche sparked a fire that continues to resonate across generations. But listen, he wasn't talking about self-awareness in the way someone might watch a motivational video and jot down a few catchy quotes. For Nietzsche, understanding oneself was almost a matter of spiritual survival. Forget living on the surface, trapped by conventions or impulses whose origins we don't even recognize. He knew, and he made a point of rubbing it in the faces of anyone willing to listen, that ignoring the darker sides of our psyche was like living on autopilot in a world of shadows. And you know that famous Nietzschean abyss? It wasn't just a poetic metaphor, it was his invitation for us to have the courage to stare deeply into everything that scares us, hurts us, and transforms us. Because only those who confront the abyss can truly achieve the freedom to be. But what makes Nietzsche's legacy so relevant today? In an age of relentless distractions where identity is often mistaken for social media performances and the quest for authenticity has become a cliché, his ideas offer an antidote. He reminds us that being authentic is hard work. It requires introspection, patience, and the willingness to question everything, including ourselves. Nietzsche also warns us about the dangers of avoiding this work. Superficiality, according to him, leads to existential emptiness, to the feeling that life is devoid of meaning. He believed that without a connection to our inner depths and the historical forces that shaped us, we become like trees without roots, at the mercy of cultural and social winds. Nietzsche's life is almost a tragic work of art in itself, a raw reminder of the weight and intensity of living what one preaches. He didn't just speak about the abyss, he plunged into it. The destiny he bore, intertwined with brilliance and suffering, was a living reflection of his own philosophy. And although his final years were marked by mental illness, the impact of his ideas continues to resonate as a beacon for those who, amidst chaos, still dare to seek meaning. But Nietzsche was shrewd, even prophetic. He knew his downfall would be used as an argument against him. Almost as if preempting this criticism, he wrote, "Supposing I have the key to your chains, why should your lock be the same as mine?" In other words, the fact that he succumbed to the weight of his journey does not diminish the power of his ideas. He never sought to be seen as a model of perfection, but as someone who paved the way for others to question, create, and overcome. the abyss that consumed him does not erase the brilliance of his legacy. On the contrary, it only reinforces how profoundly human he was. This phrase from Nietzsche mirrors his philosophy. Each of us carries a unique lock, a mystery that only we can unlock. He never aimed to provide ready-made answers. That wasn't the game. His ideas are tools, chisels for us to sculpt our lives. Like an artist before a raw block of marble, he invites us to shape the masterpiece hidden within ourselves. And at the end of this reflection, Nietzsche doesn't leave us with a period, but with a question that is both a challenge and a liberation. What are you doing to become who you are? This question is not just bedside philosophy. It's a call, a reminder that no matter where you are right now, lost, confused, at peace, or in the midst of chaos, transformation begins right here, with the next step, the next choice, the next confrontation with your shadows. It's about organizing what seems uncontrollable, giving shape to what feels meaningless, and walking forward, even without guarantees, toward what is truest within you. And so Nietzsche's legacy continues to beat, almost like a heartbeat. He challenges us to be courageous, to look within, to face our shadows not as enemies, but as parts of ourselves waiting to be integrated. Because only by confronting the chaos do we emerge more authentic, more complete, more human. First of all, I want to thank you. Yes, you, who decided to set aside a part of your day to dive into this philosophical conversation. In a world full of distractions, taking a moment to reflect on such profound ideas is in itself an act of courage. It's a privilege to be here, sharing these reflections with a community that seeks something beyond the superficial. A community that wants to understand, grow, and most importantly, become more human. If this message resonated with you, why not share it? Maybe with that friend who loves discussing life, or even with someone who might need a little nudge to look inward. And while we're at it, let me leave you with an invitation, or rather, a challenge. Tell us in the comments what you think is the biggest obstacle to becoming who you are. Let's build a space for genuine exchanges where ideas not only inspire, but also complement one another. Oh, and of course, here's a little reminder that even Nietzsche would probably tolerate, with a slight eye roll, of course, to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and like the video. It might seem mundane, but these small actions help keep this space alive. After all, grand ideas need fertile ground to grow, and you're part of that. For those already curious, the next video will bring another thought-provoking question for us to reflect on together. I won't spoil anything, but I promise it'll be another step in this journey of self-discovery that we're walking side by side. Thank you, truly, for being here. Until next time, and remember, the path to becoming who you are isn't easy, but it's undoubtedly the most important journey you can choose. Take good care of it,